Good day, Internet. This is DTNS Live for Wednesday, January 15th, 2025. From Studio Animal House, I'm Sarah Lane.
In Los Angeles, I'm Tom Merritt.
In Salt Lake City, I am Scott Johnson.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger.
Daily Tech News Show Live is made possible by you listening or watching right now. Thanks to all of you, including Jeffrey Zilks, Alo, Tony Glass, and new patrons, Lo Nanjiang, Robert, David, and Althaulus.
Welcome.
Yay! So many new patrons again. People are loving it. Thank you so much. Good to have you.
Thank you, new patrons. 2025. Welcome to DTNS Live. This is the show where we discuss the tech news to help us all understand all of it a little bit better. How you doing, Scott Johnson?
I'm all right. I missed you guys because about 2 weeks of Wednesdays were holidays, and I just haven't been here. So it feels like a comfortable, nice, like sort of bed sheet or something. I'm nice and cozy in here.
We're linens.
Yeah,
high thread count linens.
Yeah, like a nice 1,500 count.
Just talking
linen
to
sheet.
somebody about, I'm like, do you not have linen sheets on your bed? What are you doing with your life?
Yeah, it's kind of once you go there, you can't go back.
You got to do the linen. Roger Chang, how you doing?
I am doing much better than last week, so yeah, good.
Likewise. Yeah.
I mean, we were on the show yesterday, but I'm glad you're doing better than last week.
Things are going well now versus where they were in Los Angeles last week.
I will say I breathe much easier today.
You breathe easy.
There you go.
Indeed. And Tom, how are things in your part of town?
Good. The air quality is green. The morning briefing from CAL FIRE was almost the same as yesterday's, which is good. If we can make it to when the winds die down tonight, I think we're headed in the right direction.
Indeed. Yeah, things are blue skies where I am as well. So knock on wood, everybody, all the wood. And, let's all stay safe. And as we stay safe, let's peruse the latest news.
Reuters sources say ByteDance might shut down TikTok completely in the U.S. on Sunday, January 19th, unless the Supreme Court issues a stay. That would go beyond the requirements of the law, which is just that app stores must stop offering downloads and updates for the app. They don't have to stop people from using TikTok, but ByteDance might stop people from using TikTok. You might be able to use a VPN, but there's ways they could stop you from even doing that. If the app were to get pulled, users would reportedly see a pop-up directing them to a website about the ban, and then there they would be able to download their data, although there's some good instructions for downloading it ahead of time right now as well.
DJI announced it's removed geofencing restrictions in the U.S., which would let users fly drones in previously restricted areas, like an airport or a nuclear plant or around a wildfire, though its app would still issue warnings. The company argues the responsibility should lie with the drone operator, citing tools like remote ID for enforcement, though concerns remain about safety, especially after a sub-250-gram DJI drone damaged a firefighting plane in Los Angeles recently.
Yeah, and that drone is too small to fall under these rules anyway, so that nothing would have changed with that. It's also worth pointing out that DJI's geofencing was voluntary. No other drone maker does it. They were just doing it, and now what they're doing is complying with the law. They're doing what the law requires them to do. R.W. Nash posted this on subreddit. Microsoft says it's ending support for Microsoft 365 apps on Windows 10 starting October 14th, along with the operating system's end of support, so it makes sense. The apps won't start working. It's just that Microsoft is not going to keep updating them, so performance issues may show up. If you're still on Windows 10, Microsoft will let you pay $30 for a year of extra security updates, and businesses can buy up to 3 years.
On Wednesday, Microsoft also rolled out a new pricing option for Copilot called Copilot Chat. This is unlike the $30 per user monthly fee for Microsoft 365 Copilot. This version charges based on usage, so 1 cent per message with higher rates for advanced tasks if you want to access proprietary files, for example. Copilot Chat works through the Microsoft 365 Copilot app or also on the web. The company says this is a flexible model that lowers the cost barrier for businesses to try generative AI tools for themselves.
And Google announced it's partnering with the Associated Press to share news in Gemini, though details of how and when are not clear. This collaboration is part of a broader trend where companies, including OpenAI, are working with news organizations to enhance the accuracy of their generative models.
All right, Tom, since we're talking about AI, let's talk about OpenAI pouring money into local news.
Yeah, so that Gemini deal with AP is pretty common these days. A lot of companies, Google, Meta, OpenAI, Microsoft, are making deals where they say, we'll give you access to our generative model tools in exchange for letting us link to your news articles to answer questions in our chatbot. Sometimes it involves training on their data. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's just linking. There's a really interesting deal between OpenAI and Axios that will have Axios able to use OpenAI tools for its processes and systems. It will have the ability for ChatGPT to use Axios articles when answering people's questions, but it will also have OpenAI funding for local newsrooms. You may not realize this, but Axios has about 2 million users for local newsletters at 30 different cities around the United States. And OpenAI has given them the money to open 4 more. So you'll get Axios local newsletters in Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Missouri, Boulder, Colorado, and Huntsville, Alabama, where Dr. Nikki is. They are close to 5 markets being profitable. They think 5 of those markets are going to be profitable this year. So it's been a useful and starting to be profitable enterprise. Is anyone else on the panel nervous about a big tech company that is involved with trying to make its systems accurate directly funding the news?
I mean, I am.
Yeah.
I have issues with this, I think.
No one? No? Oh, wait. I'm getting someone.
It's
Nobody.
it's not that I'm not concerned, but I'm also a little more curious of why this didn't happen sooner. Like this seemed, I mean, Justin and actually you, Tom, as well, have both reiterated that local news is one of the sources of news that needs funding the most because of dropped and reduced ad revenue. And unlike national news, which is covered by multiple outlets, when it comes down to your hometown, you often rely 1 or 2, or if you're in a small town, just 1. And if you're lucky, it's more than once a week, a distribution. So, I mean, there is definitely a market there, but like trying to find a way to fund it as well as, you know, having a system to distribute it.
I don't know, man. It sounds like they've got 2 million users and 5 markets near profitability. They're already doing it. Do they need to take I money for this?
I think the Axios, I actually wasn't Axios. I read regularly for our show because they break a lot of news. I wasn't aware that the local newsletters were flourishing as much as they were. Local news is still, I think a lot of people sort of go like, oh, local news, remember that whole thing, we're a global planet at this point. That actually really matters. Particularly, going back to Los Angeles fires, great example of that. It's like, you can talk about that globally, but locally, it is a very different conversation because you have reporters that are on the ground that care, and are following certain things in Pittsburgh and Kansas City and Boulder and Huntsville. I think my big question would be, well, if OpenAI is giving Axios money, does that change the way that the information is disseminated to the rest of us?
There's a lot of ways it could. So if there is editorial control of any kind, then it definitely would. Let's assume that OpenAI isn't stupid and they're not asking for any kind of editorial control. They're just saying, you get the money for this and you run the newsrooms the way you want. Even then, the editors and the managers of these newsrooms know where that money comes from. And even if they are assured by national management that, you know what, you can do a critical story about, OpenAI's influence on your local market and it'll be fine. In the back of their mind, they're going to soften it a little. They're not going to want to risk the fact that their entire job depends on that money. It's going to have some amount of influence.
I also think that if you want to just look at the entire industry of the free press right now, it's all like this. It's owned by somebody, and the money comes from somewhere.
Sure.
So if we have issues with this, then we should probably have issues with, and I know plenty of people do, but issues with Bezos owning the Washington Post. We should have issues with who owns a lot of paper. Some of these families have been around for a couple hundred years and they still own the paper and are completely out of touch, some would argue. The point is there's always going to be some problem with who is bankrolling what and how these things pay for
and
themselves.
then there's also the issue of, kind of, a scrappy startup who's like, we're on the ground. And it's like, who are you?
Yeah, there is a little bit of newness to them.
Yeah,
That's
like
one
no
thing.
corporation owns you. Do we trust you?
I don't know. I get your point, Sarah, but in the local market, especially in these smaller markets like Pittsburgh and Kansas City, I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, thank goodness, someone's covering us." could play as well.
I'm talking more about the Twitter user who's like, all right, here's the latest on that hurricane type thing, and people are like, well, who's the source?
But that's the brilliance of this is they're not going that route. They're not trying to get social media users who may not even care about what happens in Kansas City. They're going for people in Kansas City. We're going to give you a newsletter. We're going to deliver the news directly to you. So it kind of doesn't matter what the general populace thinks. It's just what the local populace thinks.
And OpenAI hasn't given a lot of details exactly how they're going to use the information or what they want.
I think that part of the story seems pretty clear. They're going to answer ChatGPT queries sometimes by looking at Axios stories and saying, "Oh, the Axios has the answer to it," right? Mm-hmm. And they'll be able to send traffic that way. I guess there's a little bias that runs that direction too, right? Because they're funding it, they're going to want it to do well.
I was wondering maybe if they were doing like what Craigslist does, where they have a Craigslist for each region market, right? And so if you have a chatbot, a generative AI chatbot, and you ask it like, I'm hungry, where can I get burritos? It already knows where you're at, so it can give you a more curated within your locale.
They don't need to have an OpenAI for every market. Every OpenAI can know where you are and be for your market instantaneously. So I'm not sure.
And when's the last time any of you used Craigslist for something?
Been a while.
I'm not saying it's not helpful. I
don't remember
on the Craigslist.org for quite some time.
It's been a while for me.
Yeah.
I mean, we use Facebook Marketplace occasionally around here for stuff, but my biggest concern with this is the same concern other people have, which is we're at a moment right now where nobody trusts tech companies. And I'm not sure OpenAI has been around long enough for enough controversies for us to throw them in the same pile or not. They've had their share of them recently, but we're not talking about a 10-year-old company. This isn't Google. This isn't Meta. This isn't, Twitter or Apple. It's a smaller company who has yet to kind of prove what their final footprint will be. So if you're going to ask me of all of these companies I just mentioned, who would I trust the most with a initiative on the ground for local news? It's probably OpenAI, if I'm honest. That's my choice. It's
interesting you say that because I think not so much trust, but distrust I distrust the least, right? There are certain companies, if it's especially a larger tech company, there's an inbuilt level of distrust. Yeah, they want this and this. Your guard, at least my guard, is a little lowered with OpenAI. But as you said, time will tell what their exact footprint on all this will be.
Right. My whole thing isn't whether you trust OpenAI or not. It's just that when you have a news organization that is getting funded by one of the companies they cover, that coverage is going to change. Now, granted, is the Huntsville Reporter going to cover OpenAI as much as the National Reporter? Maybe not. But there is also the fact that, we don't want the Huntsville department to go away. It's doing well. Let's temper down that national coverage, maybe. Again, subconscious behavior. Sure. And there's rich people owning all the media outlets at that level, right? But, there's a difference between a media mogul family operating at something and a company that is covered by that media agency owning it.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, my point, but also to the larger point of everybody owns this stuff's all money's funneled from all these places. So if we're going to get nitpicky about the fact that it's an AI company, because everyone wants to talk about AI right now, I don't know that it's necessarily a fair.
I'm just saying, I don't see a lot of direct funding outside of advertising, and you could argue that maybe advertising is just as bad, right? And that's fair. But outside, I don't see any direct funding of newsrooms at Fox, CBS, ABC, the New York Times, et cetera, by companies that those outlets cover. I think it is a little different here.
Right. I think so.
All right, well, let's talk about the death of Snapchat. At least one creator would like that to be the case. Nikita Bier, creator of apps like TBH and Gas, if you're familiar with those, has launched a new app called Explode, which is designed for sending disappearing messages on iMessage, or Messages as it's known in all Apple OSs at this point. So as a user, you can send a text, you can send an image that can disappear after being viewed once. You can, have it disappear after 3 seconds. You can change that a little bit. Very Snapchat-esque. And the app also blocks screenshots. The app is free. There is a premium version, though, called Explode Plus, because, of course, what else would it be called? Sure. Offering extra features like screenshot alerts, if somebody does end up screenshotting what you sent, and photo replays for $40 a year or $8 a month. Bier is apparently coming for Snapchat and shared that after talks to acquire Gas, a previous app, Snap kicked the app off its platform and stalled its growth. And I think, saying like, oh, reportedly coming for Snapchat, I think the developer himself should be the voice here. Quote, Explode is a spite app. Yes, an app to spite Snapchat. 2 years ago, I met with Snapchat's CEO to discuss acquiring my previous company. I openly shared how fast we were growing. Just a week later, over the Thanksgiving holiday, Snapchat kicked our app off the Snap Kit platform, abruptly halting our growth. So this is somebody who has a cross to bear here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that the release notes just being all a diss track against Snap is a little odd. I'm also curious how this thing works.
I used it earlier. I downloaded Explode. I've got a burner account, so I sent a variety of text messages to myself. It works as advertised. It's actually pretty slick as far as how that works. I wonder, Snapchat was something I was really into a few years ago. I just all my friends left for other places, so I don't really use it anymore. Ephemeral messaging is also something that I've never really got on board with. Even Instagram stories, I miss them. I'm like, if you really want me to see it, just put it in the main feed type thing, because I'm an old person. But I think a lot of folks will really, really enjoy something like Explode because you use it with, Apple Messages until Apple kicks them out of the App Store, which I think is probably happening sooner than later.
Yeah, I wonder about that part, right? Like, what is Apple's take on this? Because I could very easily see this being one of those things that is buried in their weird terms of service that says you can't do anything to alter the way things work in iMessage. But as somebody who never really got into Snapchat, didn't care about ephemeral messages or how soon they went away or whatever, there are lots of use cases that I can think of for something like this in my main chat application or my main messaging application, which right now is iMessage. I use it a lot. So an example would be, I've been doing tax stuff. My wife the other day says, hey, I need these 3 tax ID numbers from these 3 people. And I sent them to her, and we had to do this whole rigmarole of like, make sure you delete these, or I'll send it in a note and then I got to share it out. We have to do these workarounds. If I could instead say, here it is, it's got 30 seconds, so hurry up, or whatever I can set the timer to, that's great, because then she's on it, it's out of there, and it's gone, and we don't have to think about it anymore. So I'm into that. I think that's great, and I think I could find a number of use cases like that. But I think there's going to be a lot of stuff where people are gonna scratch their head and say, well, what do I even use this for? And then it will make sense when they get it. So I'm kind of pro this sort of functionality. And maybe, what will probably happen is Apple will kick them out. And then Apple will introduce something like that in like iOS 19.
Well, and that's my thinking is like if Apple wanted to do this, it would have done this.
Oh, it'll Sherlock it. Like
will do
Apple
it.
does that all the time. I have no
Yeah.
doubt. You may be right about that.
Yeah.
I'm curious that not how well it works, but how it works. I can assume that it's able to block the screenshots, although Clinton pointed out like you could still take a picture of your screen with another camera from another phone or a camera or something. Nothing's that's true of Snapchat and Signal and everything else that has disappearing messages. But I could see them using the copy protection. So if you've ever tried to take a screenshot of your Netflix on your phone, if you're using iOS, you'll realize you just get a black screen because Netflix prevents screenshots. So there is a protocol for doing copy protect that will prevent screenshots. I assume that's what this mini app can take advantage of. So that makes sense to me. I'm wondering if the mini app is sending something timed, or is it taking advantage of the edit feature, the unsend feature in iMessage? Like what protocols it's using to make the message disappear? I'm very curious about it. I couldn't find anything in my quick searching about it. I don't see why Apple would kick this out. I see them Sherlocking it and replicating it, but I don't know that they would actually kick it out. I don't think it's violating any terms.
Yeah. Well, that's good for them if they don't. And I don't know.
Snapchat, Snapchat does disappearing messages, right? Apple doesn't mind if somebody's. They make these mini apps for messages specifically for people to do stuff like that.
I just thought of something. The protocol they're probably tapping into there is the feature that already exists on iMessage, which is if you send an audio message, like I send you a little, voice message.
I hadn't thought about the
unless
audio
you say
thing,
keep it goes away. So there's probably something.
So they could be
under
riding on that somehow.
Well, and as the sender, you can say like keep it for a minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes type thing. So
and even if people can screenshot it, I think the idea isn't so much that you're sending it to somebody you in theory trust. I sent it to my wife who's doing our accounting. I trust her for 30 seconds. If you're sending it to somebody you don't, well, you wouldn't start that to begin with. Like don't text people you don't trust.
These are all conversations old people like us had about Snapchat too. Where like we immediately assume, well, the only reason you would do this is to hide something nefarious or protect a password or something. A lot of people like disappearing messages because it just doesn't clutter up your world, right? It's just not hanging around there. It's not that you wanted it to be secret or like, oh, I hope no one ever screenshots it. It's more like I just wanted to not sit there and be cluttering up our information world. I just want to say, hey, I'll meet you at 2, and that can just go away. Like I think there's a use case for that.
I think a lot of there's a lot of sort of like wink, wink, ooh, this is salacious content, and certainly it could be used for that. But yeah, it's.
And will
I mean,
be.
how many of all of our previous text messages are something that we need to look at?
Right.
Today.
Exactly. Well, like I'm almost there. I don't need that to stick around. Maybe that could just go away. Yeah.
Or if you're like you're on your way and you're at the store and you're on the way out, you're just like, do you need this bar of soap or shampoo or whatever?
That doesn't need to be
and
preserved
you don't want them to
eternity.
respond after you left, right?
Oh
so
yeah, that too.
Away.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a friend who was I had to pick up at a doctor's office yesterday, and I was like, "Where are you exactly?" Because I've never been to this Westwood medical office, and it was like shared location for 1 hour. Great, all of that sort of that.
Oh, we did that at CES
stuff,
too. Yeah.
Yeah, that ephemeral stuff can be really helpful just because it's trying to just keep things simplified.
Right. I dropped a pin.
Know where I am right now, but not forever.
Right. Rob Dunwood dropped a pin. By the way, folks, that was on Android, not iOS that Rob did it. He dropped a pin for Stephanie, Tech Life Steph, to find him, but it expired after a while. It lasted long enough for her to find where our booth was, but he didn't want her to track him for the rest of his life, right? So yeah, time limits make sense. I get it.
Well, and that's, I don't know. This is a whole different conversation. I mean, I am still somebody who has a variety of friends on Find My, which is obviously an iOS thing. And, other friends of mine are like, how could you ever let people just know what you're doing all day, every day? And I'm like, because I just don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, I care if some people would know, but I don't care if these people know. I don't care if my mom knows that I'm home right now.
Right.
Right.
You've selected people. It's not like you're sharing it with everyone.
Yeah,
So,
and it's not like a ooh, I don't trust you. It's like we all care about privacy.
yeah. I know where Len Peralta is anytime I want because we shared location with each other at a conference years ago. But I tell you how many times I've actually looked to where Len is zero since that conference. But I see his name in there. When I'm looking for Eileen, it's like, oh, is she on her way home yet or something? I'll be like, oh, look, I still have Len's.
Yeah, what does Cleveland red light mean? What does that mean? Oh,
Rob is watching us right now. Hi, Rob. He's like, oh yeah, I did do that. Like, good to see you, man. That's funny.
It's great. I'm glad you told us that he did it on an Android phone, but he would also like it that you said that because I know he's a big fan. So
he will tell you in chat that he liked it.
The 1 hour
Yeah,
pin
sure
is
will.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, folks, if you have a thought about something on the show, but you don't know our email address, let me fix that. Feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. That, once again, is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com.
The nation's largest comic book distributor has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Scott, let's talk about what's happening here.
All right. So Diamond, you may have never heard of them. We're not talking Diamond Club, by the way. We're talking Diamond Distribution. Diamond Distribution is no more, or it will be no more very soon. And if you've ever heard of them before, you'll know that these are the guys who were really monopolizing in a lot of ways. I don't want to use that word as literally as it could be taken, but they were pretty much a monopoly when it came to comics distribution. I'm a big comic book fan. I've been following this for a really long time. And to be honest, I think people saw or thought they would see the demise of Diamond. Well, Diamond president Chuck Parker made the announcement in a letter sent to comic retailers and publishers, adding his intentions to sell off its Alliance game distribution's arm to Universal to, quote, this is his quote, protect the most vital aspects of our business, which are apparently not getting comics to comic book stores in a timely manner. Anyway, this move comes after the company saw a number of comic publishers leaving their exclusivity agreements with the company for a wider group of distribution across North America. And that's just to address the physical distribution of comics. It's easy to look at this and go, well, it's obvious why the physical distribution arm of all this is going away because digital is taking over. And I would have agreed with you about 10 years ago. But it didn't happen then, and it took a lot longer than anyone thought. And so I don't think this has as much to do with that as we maybe like to think so. I also think that the decline in physical sales, the uptick in digital, and there being really less and less reason for them to exist logistically are the reasons for this. And I don't know why it took them so long. I would have expected this, like I say, a decade ago, maybe 8 years ago. It's finally happening. And here we are to, I suppose, reap the benefits. I don't know. Like how this will affect you, Tom, if you go to your local comic book store and you're like, all right, I need the latest copy of X-Men versus Superman or whatever the dumb thing they cross over. You'll be able to still get it. These distribution deals are being made with other places that do similar work, not necessarily the same size as Diamond, but competitive groups who do distribution. And they're going to probably get better sort of regional deals. They're going to get stuff faster. Like all of this is good for comic retailers. There was a time where they felt like they were entirely beholden to the people at Diamond, and that is just no longer the case. So you should still be able to get them. You won't notice big delays. You're not going to notice anything really. I think you're just effectively going to have what you already get. The bigger question is, does this push anything further ahead when it comes to digital? And I don't think so. I think the digital's in its own weird place, and it's in its own weird place of its own making. That is to say, interesting upstarts years ago, like Comixology, would come along and blow our minds and say, digital comics looks like this is where it's at. This is very exciting. And then they get bought up by Amazon, and Amazon kind of, for lack of a better way of saying it, crapped the bed and treats that app like garbage and rolled it into the Kindle app, and it's confusing and complicated, and it's no longer the simple go in, buy a comic, and walk out sort of situation. I
mean, it's the curse of being a specialty market item, right? And that's why comic book stores sort of grew out of the dime store, like, corner store and the bookstore, right? It was just like I'm going to focus only on these because there's not a good way to service the actual customer base that wants these. And I think, when you deal with a large company like Amazon, I mean, I'm not sure. I'm sure they would prefer you to buy the graphic novels from the actual, like the physical graphic novels, because they probably make more off of it. But like there is a churn. I mean, you have a confluence of things. Comic books, traditional comic book readers are in my age demographic, right? 40s, 50s. The younger readers tend to be more attracted to manga and other types of similar
webtoons,
webtoons and stuff like. And so there's a change in taste. There's a change in kind of the way these distributions are done. I mean, Diamond's been doing this since '82, and they, like you were saying, Scott, they got so big at one point the Justice Department in 1997 led an antitrust investigation into them for monopolizing the comic book distribution market.
Yeah.
And it's just because
deservedly so, by the way. They were dominant in a way that was not, I don't think, was healthy for the business, and nobody I knew in the comics retail business were happy about that.
Apparently, it wasn't healthy for Diamond, because 20 years later they're going out of business.
Well,
the Chapter 11 bankruptcy. They're not really going out of business.
And if you go into any comic book store, one of the things you notice that you see a lot more of than you did maybe 20 years ago is related licensed merchandise, whether it's Funko Pops, whether it's toys, whether it's T-shirts. I saw, like in San Francisco, I saw the chains throughout the 2000s. My local comic book store guy, he sold up and he just sold everything. And I bought like 2 long boxes worth of comics. Jesus Christ. And then
watch your language.
Sorry. I spent a lot of money on things. And what he told me is, like, the market for the actual books is going away. People are attracted to graphic novels because they collect the entire set of issues that people don't have to wait for. It's one book, and they buy it and they can read through it. But
kind of reminds me of box sets versus individual CDs. We have more of an appetite for buying a really nice box set or vinyl copy of something that has a nice big art than just a CD in a jewel box, right?
Well, especially now, because we know they're going to do it. Like it's a foregone conclusion that if they come out with, let's say it's a DVD, let's say it's Blu-rays, and they come out with a single Blu-ray for the first of 3 films that are already made, and they're just distributing it a year apart, Lord of the Rings style.
Sure.
That's coming in a collector's edition.
Yeah.
There'll be extended editions full of interviews and special effects, all the stuff they're going to put into those things. I think we are now trained to wait for that, and I think we prefer it.
And if you just want to read the comic book, you can read the digital comic book. It may be annoying on Kindle, but it's there, and there are other places to read it. And so that gives you the patience to be like, well, I can just read it there, and then I'll buy the collectible graphic novel versus reading it in the staple.
We also have a bit of a problem. Roger, you can tell me if you disagree with this. I come up with this in my own head, but it seems like part of the reason Amazon would prefer you, I don't think it's so much price, because they actually make a lot on digital, because there's nothing to ship and there's no shipping and there's no, it's just a file. So I think they actually prefer that, but they would prefer it if the ecosystem loved their tablets. And unfortunately, they don't. They love their competitor's tablet, in this case, Apple, and Apple has a dominance with iPads. So when there's somebody else dominant with iPads, and Apple's got some comics, like they do quite a bit of graphic novel compilations, like stuff that's like Tom says, like trade paperbacks or collections later, and you can buy those there. They're full color, they look great, and they're great on there. But I don't think, because there's not a sort of universal way everyone's reading them, it puts everybody in that business a little bit on the back of their heels, because they don't know what to do with it. They don't know, well, Apple controls the iPad, and we don't really have enough of these Fire tablets out there, so we're going to do the best we can, but really we're just feeding them, and we kind of hate them because we make them go out to the web to even buy this stuff. Like, it's just a complicated mess, and because, like you say, it's such a specialty item, it just puts the whole thing into a twist.
Well, I mean, you bring up a good point. Distribution's a little fractured. It doesn't help that Marvel and DC have both kind of gone into... It's not just we're pushing out a new issue of Spider-Man. We're pushing out the whole franchise of Spider-Man. So they're trying to kind of cross-pollinate across all the stuff they make that is Spider-Man branded, because that's how they make more money. And I think there isn't the same level of I mean, back in the 80s, event books were like the thing. They would like go all out. They would have variant, like no one cares about variant covers anymore. Like on digital, you can get all of them. You don't need to buy like 5.
Well, it's like
digital
Tom
copies of
says,
things.
I have friends who do this now. They'll buy the digital to read it and then buy the physical to keep in its board and bag and never open it because they want to collect or whatever. So that happens. That's still a thing. But again, very specialized, right? Very specialty. This isn't a mass market thing. And so nobody seems too anxious to figure out how to capture the market. Meanwhile, piracy is like way up in comics because it's a pain to get the comics you want. And that's usually what happens is that resistance leads to more piracy.
And then you're not bound. I mean, in many ways,
Bound.
you can bound. You're not bound to a format or a platform. It's like, dude, I can crank this out on the PDF. When I'm pirating this stuff, anyone can read it on anything they want, right?
Yeah.
You don't need to be on any particular platform. It's a weird, interesting confluence of things that happen all at the same time. And I agree with you. I thought Diamond would have went belly up in the 2010s, but
I would actually. So here's my prediction. What comes of this? Very little in the way of change for those buying comics off the shelf, off the rack. You guys are going to have a similar experience. You'll just have distribution that will happen without you knowing about it. Who knows? Diamond might be that again in the future when they restructure. I don't know what this Chapter 11 leads to. But all of that aside, I do think that where the strength has been seen the most is Marvel, DC, Image, and others doing their own apps with subscription models. DC Unlimited, Marvel Unlimited and DC, whatever theirs is called. Crap, I should have looked that up. But those two services are really good. They're very strong, and they have a bunch of subscribers. I think that their only weakness is they only feature comics that are more than 6 months old in those cases. I think it might be 3 for one of them. But either way, they're older comics. They're not day and date on, out this week kind of stuff. I think one of them or both of them or many more of them will finally, this might even be the year or the next couple of years, where they'll finally say day and date for everything if you want to pay $19.99 a month. And for the 6 month and older, we'll still keep around our $12.99, $16, whatever it is. And I think that they're going to finally get over that hump because honestly, Diamond was their biggest objection. Those guys were fighting this stuff tooth and nail. And now they're over there restructuring and not bothering anybody. So I think that there's a chance for the big publishers to do their own thing this time.
Well, Roger, in a win for right to repair, Microsoft appears to be making it easier for users to repair their Xboxes.
That is correct. Xbox has announced that it's expanding its Xbox repairability program. Previously, the repairability options that Microsoft offered were pretty much limited to the game controllers for the Xbox, not the actual the machine, through its online store. So you could get new thumbstick nubs, you can get buttons and things of that nature. But now, owners who have I have flaky Wi-Fi in my Xbox Series X or S, you can get a replacement part from iFixit or the Microsoft Store. And iFixit now actually includes Xbox specific toolkit for people who want to tackle this DIY repairs. And I will say that some of these repairs do require some level of soldering acumen. So if that's something that scares you, you might be more interested in this follow-up service from You Break iFixit, which is starting January 20th, this coming Monday, by Sherion, which will be the first Xbox authorized service provider in 700 locations across the U.S. So if you have an issue, you can bring the box or whatever hardware difficulties you're having to them, and they could do that for you. But I think it's great because up until now, I remember the whole Red Ring of Death with the Xbox 360. I kind of shrugged my shoulders. I did the whole online thing, and I got a replacement. I took the replacement and promptly traded in for an Xbox S because I didn't want to deal with that again. But your options were limited. You could try fixing it yourself, but depending on what was at fault, it could just be like, oh yeah, I took the heatsink off, took off the old thermal paste, applied new ones, and it all works. Or I broke the controller, or I broke something, the motherboard's cracked. I think this is great. They sell little Wi-Fi daughter boards, so if your Wi-Fi is flaky, you can replace that. They have M.2 NVMe's, so if you want to replace that. Fans, they have that little controller nub where you put the thumbstick on, but you solder that into your controller if you're having issues with drift or anything like that.
You have to buy the authorized parts, though. You can't bring your own parts in, right?
No, yeah, you would. They would supply the authorized parts. But I mean, that's what
Which
you
can
want.
buy through iFixit, so it's easy. But it's not like, I found an NVMe drive for cheaper that's the same. You can't use it.
You can do it. You'll just mess up. You'll just kill your warranty. But I mean, like anything, you can get aftermarket stuff and maybe.
Oh, so
hack
it
around.
would work. It just would hurt
Yeah.
your like they're not doing. That's what I was asking is whether they're doing the thing like Apple where they're part pairing. So they're not. Doing
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, no. In this case, as far as I understand, in this case, and Roger, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that this is really just for warranty repairs or fixes, or even if you're out of warranty, they just want to be the place you go to, but you can still go, wherever, or even 3D print some certain things or whatever and do your own thing.
I mean, some things you're going to have to get, the XS controller. You're probably not going to find anything other than the one on iFixit. But some of the stuff, like the drives and stuff, you might be able to use something else, and it's a little cheaper. But you could still use iFixit's tools and control and manuals. Yeah, they provide the manuals too.
And your most breakable thing are those controllers. Your sticks are the things that go first, usually with wear and use. And so this is where you're going to see it happen the most.
Xbox Toolkit's only $13 too.
Yeah,
so
it's cheap.
I mean, honestly, up until now, it's just been a bunch of people who have either done YouTube videos or posted on subreddit forums the entire instructions. Like, this is how I got it to work. And, that's kind of cool, but it's nice to have at least a tacit support from the company that produces it and know that you do have some recourse instead of traditionally, if my old 360 controller is flaky, if I wanted to fix it, like if there was an issue with one of the six, I would have to go on to eBay and buy a bunch of the used ones and basically cannibalize the parts out of those to stick it into mine in order to get it to work. In this case, I don't need to do that hunt and peck. Oh, I know this one part is flaky. I can just buy a replacement part, to heat up my soldering iron, get my solder ready, and away I go.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. I wish there was more of this across that part of the industry. Like even when I had a fan go bad in a 4090 GeForce card or 4080, and I thought it was the case fan because it was going.
What did you say to the fan?
I said, "Look, you quit parking in front of my house." All right. No, I had somebody do that once.
But he's one of your biggest fans.
So this is one of my littlest fans, turns out, because my big case fan was fine. I got in there myself and I saw that this fan was just kind of wobbling on. They have 3 fans on that card, and I really wanted to just swap one out for another one, and I couldn't find an easy way to do it. So I took some advice and figured out there is some aftermarket ways of doing it. I have the part. I haven't done it yet. It's still over there humming. It's not now. It's off. But I just feel like that could all be easier. I should be able to go to NVIDIA and go, it would be great. Or if it's the third party who made the card, because they OEM these things, it'd be nice to go to them. In this case, it's an actual NVIDIA card. And I wish I could go do that more. So I don't know if this will start anything, but Sony could learn a thing or two. Certainly Nintendo, repair parts for Nintendo would be great because their sticks for the Switch are notoriously terrible. So we'll see what happens with the new one, hopefully with this next announcement next week. But all of those guys, more right to repair mindedness so that we can do more stuff on our own would be great.
Yeah. I mean, if you haven't poked around at iFixit lately, and I'm speaking to the audience now, not specifically to you, Scott, but like they have repair instructions for way more than you might think. Like I'm looking at all the GeForce RTX 4070, 4090 like repair guides here. Parts different matter whether you can find them or not, but they have repair guides. If you're into it, they have repair guides for household stuff. If you go into the household section, there's, baby and toddler items, kitchenware, musical instruments, luggage, patio, lawn and garden. There's, toys. It's a huge thing. I actually got a chance to talk to one of the guys from iFixit at CES. We ran the interview with him about right to repair in Monday's Daily Tech News Show briefing. So if you don't get the regular Daily Tech News Show, you might want to check that out from last Monday. But it does feel like repair is making slow but progress, right? Like it's inching forward with little things like this Xbox program, but there are more of those than there used to be.
And,
for
and
sure.
I will say on a side note, it tends to kind of cement, I don't want to say loyalty, but mind share with the customer that repairs it. I know I've been buying these Dell refurbished PCs because they have a plethora of parts for all their workstations, and it's so easy to do because they're designed to be pulled apart. So, I can either go on eBay or can go directly to the Dell's online, supply parts store and get that stuff. And for every machine, it's like, well, Dell offers all this, so I know if there's a problem down the road, if I can fix it and relatively cheaply. If I go with Lenovo or someone else, I might have to sit forever on parts, or they might not have them at all because they've retired that particular model. It's kind of weird. It's like buying a car. It's like, I have all these Toyota parts. Why wouldn't I buy another Toyota?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's easy to remember. If you're like, I can fix it, go to iFixit. If you're like, I want you to fix it, go to YouBreakIFix. You got easy places to go.
It's also really important to remember a controller. If you buy a new one because your other one went bad, you're going to pay $49, $50.
Yep.
$60.
Well,
$70 for a PS5.
Yeah, PS5s are more.
Okay, not.
But let's just say 60.
$1 million.
I can find Xbox Series.
Do I hear 1.5?
The point is, like, you either can go. The old model was either, well, I'll have them fix it for 60, or I'll buy a new one for 60. So at some point, Microsoft and others have to go, well, why are we doing that? Let's sell them the parts. We don't need to be in the expensive business of fixing everything. Let them do it. Yeah. So makes sense for them too.
And I don't know that it really reduces the sales for these companies.
No, I think it enhances
Easy
them.
for me to say, I know. But
yeah, I think you're right.
Let's check out the mailbag, shall we? Jay wanted to share their thoughts on yesterday's discussion we had here about people flocking to TikTok alternative Xiaohongshu. Roger, how did I do?
Xiaohongshu.
There you go. Or Red Note in English, and whether or not that was really happening. Jay says, discussion of Red Note has been all over my For You page. I guess it depends on your algorithm or which talk you're on. There is also a little it on X. I've downloaded Red Note. I've spent a lot of time there. Most, but not all, of the Chinese users very welcoming towards the influx of TikTok refugees, as I guess they're known. It doesn't take long for the app's algorithm to serve you English-speaking content. It's a fun app. I could see it being a player, even if TikTok doesn't go away. There's always the possibility that the government will block Red Note too, but I have a feeling they'll be playing whack-a-mole for years to come. Jay says, Americans in general don't like being told what to do. The American spirit is alive and well on a Chinese app.
don't tell me what I think. Oh, right. Yeah.
Cold dead hands.
Yeah. No, Jay's right. I don't know why I idiotically said, like, I haven't heard anyone talking about Red Note, because immediately after I said that, Eileen was like, oh yeah, I'm installing Red Note right now. Everybody on TikTok is talking about Red Note. So I just didn't wait long enough for the information to reach me. But yeah, in fact, Tony Wang, producer Tony Wang, who's done shows with us in the past, emailed us, and he's been using Red Note for almost 6 years. So I sat down with him this morning. We'll have that in the briefing tomorrow morning about how he's dealing with the fact that he's been using this for years, and suddenly there's all these TikTok refugees coming in.
Yeah, the Red Note thing to me is, I get it. It's a little mini it accomplishes a few things. A little mini protest that says, hey, you're worried about our data? Now, really worried about it. We're giving it directly to this one. I can't even read. The icon has Chinese on it. I can't even read it. That's how Chinese my data is now. I understand the rebellion of it. But I also think it might be a little too quick, because what if the whole thing gets reversed and you don't have to delete it? What if it keeps going? What if it doesn't go away?
Or what if Red Note also gets,
Well, exactly.
deleted?
I don't know, man. There's no win in any of this.
It's the Wild West, as it were. If you have comments about this, and I know a lot of you do, you might be sitting there being like, oh, I wish you knew how I felt about this. Do send us your comments. We want to hear what you feel about anything we talk about on the show. feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. Scott Johnson, we're going to thank you now because you've done very well.
Good job, Scott. Well
Thank you
done.
so much.
You
Good
deserve
job. Give yourself a little round of applause. But let folks know where they keep up with you because you are quite prolific.
Well, I got a lot going on, but I'll tell you what, the place to go for more riveting discussion about pop culture and video games might be the show Core, which I do on Thursdays with a couple of friends. We talk about a lot of these same issues, and we go pretty deep on this stuff. Sometimes these shows last like 3.5 hours. So if you're like, man, that sounds great, I'd love more of that, please check it out, frogpants.com/core or wherever you get your shows.
We need to be better about reminding you that you can submit and vote on titles, because at one point earlier in the show, Nick was the only one who had voted. It looked like, but more of you have voted now. We got 30 votes on 21 titles. Showbot.tv, DTNS.showbot.tv is where you go to do that. If you're watching or listening live, you can submit them in the Discord and in the Twitch chat. If you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn, you can just go to DTNS.showbot.tv. You can submit them directly there and vote on them there as well. The top vote getter at the moment is from Stealth Dave. Remember local news? It still matters. We also have Can You Trust OpenAI with Local News from GPEG84. Batfink 2001 with the obvious Axios of Evil? Question mark. Question mark. We don't know. We're not saying it is. Diamond Health from Zoe.
Nice.
Hulk Smash Banner Fix from G. James B.
Ooh,
I like that one. That's
that.
cute. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, there's
Let
some
us
good ones
fix
here.
and we'll buy more from GPEG.
You break, I fix. Give us the parts, we'll fix. I break, I fix. There's a lot of variations on a theme there. Trusting my wife for 30 seconds from C-Spawn. This is the disappearing message.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then no.
And then
we
no,
will not
cut it
share
off.
location with each other.
Indeed.
Not in this marriage.
Nope.
Well, we went with Can You Trust OpenAI with Local News? That's from
Nice.
GPEG84. So congratulations, GPEG84. And thanks to everybody for submitting and voting. That was fun.
All right, folks. Big thanks to everybody watching or listening live. LinkedIn folks, always in there, always watching. Very good. Lots of YouTube folks in there today. Thanks for being with us. Twitch folks as well. We have some call outs for Twitch. Larry in Atlanta resubscribed for the 50th month. Hey, everybody, welcome back, Larry.
Hey.
We also have bits from Zoe and Technomensch. Paley Glendale used a message effect, made his message look all pretty, said, have a great show. Pencil Mage followed us. Thanks, everybody, for supporting us, however you support us, Twitch, YouTube, or otherwise.
Indeed. Before we get out of here, what's everybody having for dinner?
For dinner?
Some kind of French thing Kim's making. I forgot the name
Ooh,
of it.
that sounds really nice.
I know.
It does.
I'm actually really excited, but I
Can we
cannot
come
remember the
over?
name.
I was about to make a Chef Boyardee joke, but then I realized it's not.
Is it fries?
No, no. It's some kind of. It's got mushrooms and it's cooked in white wine and it's got a bunch
Casserole
of fancy
dish?
stuff. I don't
Is
know.
it
I don't
beef
know.
bourguignon?
No, it's not that either. I don't know what this is, but I had it one other time and it was fantastic, and then I immediately forgot the name, and I did it again.
Is there a protein in it?
Yes, it's got. She's making half and half because I have a vegetarian daughter. The half for us is definitely got
Chicken?
chicken. It's got chicken.
Got
chicken
chicken.
a la king.
No,
Chicken
it's
fricassee?
No, I can't remember. I'm gonna have to bug
mushroom
her.
chicken.
No.
I mean,
It's something with a-
mushrooms
it would
and
be.
chicken. I mean, you can. That's easy to
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
that
It can
yummy.
be done.
Put it in one dish and you throw it in the oven.
I had something
Right.
made by your wife yesterday.
Oh yeah, did you? How was it? Did you enjoy it?
It was spicy and wonderful.
Good.
It's the powder that Kim makes that goes into sour cream to make a dip for
Yeah, it's
potato chips.
Cajun dip, and it's amazing.
So
So
good.
Yeah, it's
speaking of potato chips, I'm not a potato fan historically. Don't like potato chips, but I was in a convenience store yesterday, and kettle chips apparently have this a whole new array of not like fried, but like what do
Baked?
they call it? I guess baked, but what do they call it when you're like air fried? Air fried.
Oh, air fried.
Okay.
Yeah. And I ate the whole bag.
I do like air frying of everything. Big fan.
You've just reviewed yourself to be human, Sarah.
Well, yeah, I know.
see-
It was up in the air before.
C-SPAN suggests coq au vin.
Oh, I think that might be it.
We hit on it. Good job,
that's great.
C-SPAN.
I think that's it. Yeah, I texted her and said, "Hey, tell me what you're making," and she hasn't answered. So I think you beat her to it.
She's like, I'm busy. I'm cooking.
Yeah, I'm busy making
Or
it.
C-SPAN and Kim are the same person.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. All right, Kim.
I've never seen them. The C-SPAN wrote, "This is Kim." Not.
I mean, is it not?
Concavin.
All right, Kim.
Cocavin.
Coq au vin.
Cocavin is how you say it. Okay. Yeah, that is exactly what she's
I don't
making.
know. Sarah probably says it better than I do. But she's better at French.
Well,
Pretty
I just
excited.
want to eat. Scott, I'll
If
be
you
there
were here,
in-
we would
I'll
feed
be
you.
there in, I don't know, 7 to 8 hours.
About
My
12.
Tavala
10 or
meals
12.
got canceled 2 weeks in a row
Oh, no.
Ooh.
because even though everyone else seems to be delivering to Los Angeles, Tavala is like, we can't get our delivery people to deliver in Los Angeles. They're not using UPS or they're using some other like gig work thing.
Huh.
Interesting. I not last night, but the night before, I was just sort of like, fridge is full of food, but you know what? I want ramen.
Yeah.
And also
Sure.
sushi.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Uber One definitely delivering.
Oh yeah, we ordered something delivered last night from a restaurant, no problem. But whatever gig work company Tavala is using to get their meals to us, and granted, since they switched from FedEx, they come faster. I will give them that. They're not able to get rolling during the fires for some reason, so they canceled them for this past Monday and they canceled them for this coming Monday.
Well, I mean, there could be like a variety of people who just are on the roster who just can't drive.
Yeah, right.
now.
It could be, if a bunch of the people at that particular outlet were in Altadena or the Palisades, right?
Yeah.
They have plenty else to deal with. I get it. It just seems odd that there's no alternative for them. I don't know. It could be something to do with the provisioning of the food too. And who knows?
Probably.
I think all the provisioning comes out of Chicago though.
Well, for everybody who is outside of the LA area, the good news is that Tom, Roger, and I are all safe.
See?
We are yes. Knock on wood. We are surveying the scene, but it's been a couple of crazy weeks. Definitely, rolling into 2025 hot as heck. And we'll be here for you. That's what we
Larry
do.
is like, why not just get in your car and go get it? Do you mean the Tavala? Because it's in Chicago. I'm not going to go get that.
Tom,
Yeah, that-
come on.
Oh,
Don't you like a
maybe-
good road trip?
Sure, I do.
Maybe the warehouse where they kind of store it locally before it's distributed got damaged or something.
Maybe that's a possibility. Yeah, I hadn't thought of that.
Well, everybody, we are going to do a Daily Tech News show, which we affectionately now call DTNS Live, every day. And we'll be back doing it all again tomorrow. Reminder, you can watch us live Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, that's 2100 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We'll see you tomorrow.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.